Some of the greatest talents ever to grace the film industry, including the likes of Daniel Day-Lewis, Cate Blanchett and Christian Bale, despite being massive stars and celebrities, manage to become completely unrecognizable every single time they're on screen. Not only does an actor's own performance cement that immersion though, but the makeup, hair, and of course prosthetics help bring a character to life on the big screen. That said, sometimes an actor undergoes a physical transformation for a role and it just doesn't work. Whether the prosthetics themselves look terrible or they actively obscure a star's performance to the point where it leaves audiences wondering why the studio shelled out for such a big name at all, not every actor has survived a stint in the makeup chair. I'm Josh from Whatculture.com, and these are 7 insane times movies stupidly hid actors behind prosthetics. Number 7. Idris Elba, Star Trek Beyond. If you're cast in a Star Trek movie, there's a good chance your performance is going to be wasted after being forced into some kind of alien costume. In fact, the most recent installment of the franchise, Star Trek Beyond, took this to the next level with Idris Elba's alien warlord, Krall. Though quite a menacing presence, Elba is entirely obscured by the prosthetics required to transform him into the villain. He's completely unrecognizable for the most part, and even some brilliantly intense eye acting couldn't quite detract from the fact that his ability to emote had been reduced massively by the bulky makeup weighing him down. Fortunately, Elba didn't spend all of his time in the prosthetics, and there actually is a cool little twist towards the end that sort of, maybe, justifies it. Still, there's no denying that the actor's best talents were mostly wasted by being caked in such a garish set of alien prosthetics. Number 6. Leonardo DiCaprio, J. Edgar. If an actor jumps into the makeup chair, undergoes hours of prosthetics, and transforms into a historical figure, their chances of nabbing an Academy Award jumps up massively. That same end result was no doubt what Leonardo DiCaprio and Warner Brothers were expecting when the actor was signed up to play the titular character in Clint Eastwood's rightly forgotten J. Edgar. Unfortunately though, it wasn't to be. Playing the former head of the FBI across multiple decades of his life, DiCaprio was aged up for major chunks of the movie, giving a receding hairline and a Marlon Brando-esque makeover. Unfortunately, because these present-day sequences were juxtaposed with flashbacks where the actor looked like his regular old self, they were even more distracting, not least because they also made him look a little like Matt Damon. Don't tell me you don't see it. Number 5. Christopher Eccleston, Thor, The Dark World. Yeah, I know the makeup wasn't the biggest factor in making the Dark World's Malekith one of the most disposable baddies in the MCU, but it certainly didn't help the villain seem any less generic than he already was. Thanks to a combination of the actual writing and the confining prosthetics themselves, Christopher Eccleston was unable to bring anything distinct to the role, being confined to the same perpetual scowl that similarly sucked all nuance and depth out of Hugo Weaving's performance in the first Avenger. It makes sense then that he's constantly spoken out about his time working on the movie, as anyone could have taken on the same stuntman-esque role and nothing would have been lost. Number 4. Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Looper. Perhaps one of the most needless uses of prosthetics on this list, Joseph Gordon-Levitt wasn't confined to the makeup chair for hours on end to transform him into a historical figure or a Marvel supervillain, but rather, Bruce Willis. Looper is all about a hitman who kills people sent back through time from the future, with the twist being that one of his targets is actually himself. In order to make it more convincing that both Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Bruce Willis were playing the same character then, the filmmakers applied prosthetics to the former to make him look more like the latter. In a way, it makes sense too. I mean, after all, everyone is fully aware of what Willis looked like when he was young, considering he was one of the biggest action stars of the 20th century. But the problem was that the effects didn't actually make the resemblance any more convincing. If anything, it only took you out the movie more, and made Gordon-Levitt's performance feel all the more artificial. Number 3. Gary Oldman, Hannibal. A child molester given PCP and told to tear his own face off with a bit of glass during a quote-unquote therapy session with Hannibal Lecter, Mason Verger spends the majority of 2001's Hannibal horribly disfigured and planning revenge from his bed. Although it cuts back to him quite frequently, you might go the entire movie without realizing that it's actually Academy Award winner Gary Oldman under those prosthetics. The makeup itself is admittedly quite terrifying in its own way, but it's also potentially the only only time in this list that it completely obscures the actor's face. It's a challenge you can see a performer like Oldman eagerly signing up to take on, but the end result is certainly a mixed bag. The voice the actor chose for the role awards the movie with a strange campiness, which hurts it more than it helps, and without Oldman's ridiculously expressive face to back it up, feels like a truly weird casting choice. Number 2, Oscar Isaac, X-Men Apocalypse. Oscar Isaac's casting as Apocalypse imbued fans with so much confidence. This was the biggest villain from the comics not yet adapted to film, and an actor of Isaac's caliber was perfect for the part. However, that confidence quickly evaporated when Fox released the first images of the actor in costume. Looking more like Ivan Ooze from the Power Rangers film or Thanos' dollar store counterpart than an imposing destroyer of worlds, there was just something so off about the whole design. The decision to go a more practical route rather than resort to CGI was admittedly admirable, but the bulky prosthetics probably ended up hiding more of his performance than if he was rendered digitally. Isaac tried his best, but was very clearly a man in a costume rather than the terrifying mutant he was supposed to be, and there was nothing he could do to convince people otherwise. Number 1. Mickey Rooney, Breakfast at Tiffany's. Perhaps the most infamous use of prosthetics an actor has used for a role ever, Mickey Rooney jumping into the makeup chair in order to play the buck-toothed Mr. Yuniyoshi in Breakfast at Tiffany's has not aged well, to put it lightly. While an actor getting piled with prosthetics to play a character of another race was par for the course in the early 20th century, Rooney's role has come under some severe criticism over the past decade or so. It's more than fair, not only because the practice of having a white dude dress up as a Japanese person is pretty questionable all things considered, but also because of the cultural stereotypes the role itself is built entirely around.
Next up, we are straight back to Shadow Picard for another scene in which it's incredibly important to me that nothing bad ever happens to Lara's
YouTube. The unexpected frontier. These are the videos of Whatculture.com. Its continuing mission to list strange new facts, seek out news and offbeat discoveries, to boldly go where no Whatculture channel has gone before.
Hey, how would you guys like to start a Star Trek channel?
Hell yeah!
Oh, sorry, how's he got a uniform? I've been asking for one for months now. And
Friday money, I'll be sipping jippers on the beach somewhere.
Hell yeah!
Is he even cold?
Hell yeah!
If I had any money, I'd be
Literally
sipping jippers on the
months
beach
I've been
somewhere.
asking for one.
Hell yeah!
If I had any money, I'd be sipping jippers on the beach somewhere.
Hell yeah!
If I had any money, I'd be sipping jippers on the beach somewhere.
Hell yeah!
If I had any money, I'd be sipping jippers on the beach somewhere.
Hell yeah!
If I had any money, I'd be sipping...
Hi, I'm Marcus Bronzy, new presenter for Trek Culture, Whatculture's new home for all things Star Trek related. Now, we've already got a bunch of great content like Adam Cleary's ups and downs for every new episode of Picard, and we'll of course have all of the lists and rankings that you know and love us for. Fancy yourself a Trekkie and want to contribute? Well, Whatculture is hiring video editors and writers, so if you want to get involved, fire over a CV and cover letter to trekculture@whatculture.com. And while you're at it, don't forget to slap subscribe and give us a follow on Twitter. It would be a great dishonor if you didn't. I've been Captain Marcus Bronzy. Until next time, Kapla!